Good morning. Welcome to our Wednesday morning of Love Data Week. Thank everybody for joining us for this Zoom session today. This Zoom session, Love the Data, Value the Learning, is going to be presented to you by Catherine Scott and Diana Jernigan-Breedy from the Office of Educational Effectiveness. Feel free at any time during the presentation to share comments or questions in the chat, and it's an informal presentation, so we will be happy to entertain your questions. Later today, you're going to receive a brief survey. We would really appreciate your feedback about the event this morning. We also hope that you join us for other events this week, particularly our in-person open house that we're going to be holding on Friday. So thank you again for being here, and I'm now going to turn it over to Catherine and Diana.
Hello, everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Catherine Scott. I'm the director of the Office of Educational Effectiveness. This is really going to be Diana's show. But before we get started, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our approach to how we assess general education and why we came about that way. So in the past, we've always sent out, surveys and things like that to collect general education assessment information. But when our office kind of stepped in and took over, we had conversations with our faculty-led assessment council and even conversations within our general education advisory committee to talk about a different approach. And what we decided to do is to have conversations with faculty and talk to them about what's going on in their classroom and actually talk to them about how they're assessing and at what level that's happening. So Diana's going to walk through the process and talk a little bit about our findings and hopefully get to take something away from this conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to Diana.
Great, thank you. Let me share my screen. All right, can everyone see?
Yep, you're good.
All right. So we'll start with the executive summary. These findings are from 24-25, so that was the first cohort. So when we started this in spring of 2023, we assessed all 20 SBC categories. With some advice from our faculty-led assessment council, it was advised to stagger the approach and to do 5 categories for the remaining 4 years. So we are actually in our second year of doing the 5 each year. So this goes back to last year. So there were 5 categories assessed. There were 13 learning outcomes assessed as well across 93 SBC course sections and conversations with 75 faculty members with roughly 16,000 duplicated students. In all assessed outcomes, 78% of all students performed at an acceptable or better. So we have acceptable and exemplary level. So that's more than 3/4 of our students performing quite well in the SBC categories. We also did focus groups with faculty and students. We did lower classmen and then graduating seniors. And one of the biggest takeaways was that students who entered with a clearly defined major initially perceived general education courses as being less relevant. They kind of just wanted to come in, do their courses, and be done. While students who were undecided or changed their majors somehow throughout their educational journey found more value in general education because they saw it as an opportunity to explore and discover other majors. Approximately 39% of the faculty respondents noted that they plan to make some type of change, tweak something in the syllabus and or their curriculum and instruction based on the guided conversations. So a guided conversation is set up just like this. Usually it's with me, and I'm meeting with faculty. It could be in person, it could be online. Either they come to my office or I go to them, whichever is more flexible and feasible for the faculty member. It's approximately 45 minutes. Sometimes it could be less, depending on how much conversation we're having. We will look at the different categories for the particular, the learning outcomes for the particular category, and then look at the assessment method the faculty members are utilizing in their courses and aligning them. Once that happens, then we will have a discussion on where faculty see their students in relation to the criteria of the assessment method. So let's just say it's a an exam, how do the students do, right? We leave the benchmark up to them to say, this grade marking or this grade range or this criteria is acceptable. This is exemplary. This is developing. Those are the three categories in which we distribute student performance. So this is what our content management system looks like. This is what every faculty member sees. They see the learning outcomes that are associated with their course through the SBC. They then have canned, we have canned assessment methods here. So it's your typical papers, group presentations, you name it, it's probably final exams, midterms. We also have other, because there are faculty that have something that's just precise to their category. So it could be simulations, it could be field work, it could be, in this case, weekly discussions that they felt best aligned to the first GLOW learning outcome. From there, as I mentioned, the students are distributed. So let's just say, in this case, 15 were deemed to be exemplary, 2 were acceptable, and there were 4 that were developing. Where I find I get the most out of the conversation is in describing the strategies that faculty are using to improve student performance. So whether students at developing, how do we get them to acceptable? If they're acceptable, how do we get them to exemplary? And even the ones who are exemplary, how do we keep them there? So a lot of times, sometimes faculty will say, oh, well, I do some things. They don't give themselves enough credit. But once we start talking, then I go, oh, well, I'm hearing you're doing peer review in your class. You're scaffolding. You're giving them timely feedback. You've got open and flexible office hours, right? They're able to meet with you, TAs, right? They can meet in peer groups. You've created tutoring sessions. You have untimed quizzes so they can practice the content. So all of this gets noted in this particular qualitative section. This actual screen becomes a PDF that goes directly to the faculty member. We do not share this with anyone else. If the faculty member wants to share it with someone, it's up to them, but we keep this housed in our content management system. So regarding the findings, we found that assessment methods identified by faculty for 24-25, the top 3 were final exams, presentations, and written assignments. But you'll see the distribution where we had speeches, we had surveys, we had in 2 classes, they did debates. We had some peer evaluations, some observations. In 1 class, they did a portfolio. So it kind of runs the gamut, but the bulk of the assessment methods tend to be in those first 3 categories of final exams, presentations, and written assignments. Here were our findings where we saw that, in QPS, they had 78.3% being acceptable or higher. I never want to think of it as one category is better than the other because we're assessing them by category. So what I will say is that across the 5 categories, we are seeing that students are doing quite well, given what is required of them for the learning outcomes. And so we see that, yes, students do quite well in speak at 94.2%, but they're also doing well in some of our harder ones like ESI and SBS and QPS as well. So here we just talked about the distribution of students. So we had our biggest category was QPS, where we assessed over 7,000 students, and HFA Plus had roughly about 1,000. So these were some of the qualitative strategies that faculty were using to increase and improve student performance. So we see accessible support, we see timely, detailed feedback, we see peer collaboration, a mix of low and high stakes assessment. So we found that, the courses that have just maybe 2 or 3 high stakes exams, students prefer to have the classes that had a mix, maybe some quizzes, some written work, and in addition to exams, midterms and or finals. The ability to revise and resubmit assignments. So we saw that where faculty would give feedback and then give it back to the students to make adjustments. They may be able to get extra points on the written work and or get a brand new grade based on the revisions. And then one big thing that came out was the use of models or exemplars. So, oftentimes students say, I wish I knew how to do this. So we found that faculty who, were able to produce models of good work right? Their top students, their top work, and use it as a reference. Students could then use it as a reference. They found that their students did better in those courses. So we wouldn't be OEE if we didn't assess the assessment. So we send out, after our conversations, an anonymous feedback survey. The response rate is quite low, but it's one of those things where we're hoping to as we keep and continue to do this, it will have more and more faculty respond to the survey. So there were 23 who responded with a response rate of 37%. Approximately 9 of the faculty respondents noted that they would make a change based on the initiative. So I'm hoping that those 9 actually, they have a ripple effect where, they're talking to other faculty, and because of this particular kind of conversation, that they want to have others do the same thing, that they've learned something, they've had a moment to kind of self-reflect. And that's one of the things I find about the assessment. It gives faculty a moment to self-reflect on their course, and to just think, what might I tweak, or what might I do a little bit better or a little different going forward? So we also had our focus group, and here were some of the analyses from the student feedback. So what they saw with general education and observed benefits was the real world application, and enhanced engagement and the perceived value of the course, and especially as it relates to life after SBU. They had some transferable skills. So they noticed that, in one course, they might have gained some analytical or critical thinking, but they could apply it to other courses. Communication as well. They realized that their writing, speaking, their listening, all those skills transferred from one course to another. The attention to detail, the creative problem solving, supportive and interactive teaching strategies also boosted learning. So the more engaged faculty were, the more students were just, taking it in like a sponge and really absorbing the skills and the content in the course. Some observed challenges that students mentioned. There was a lack of clarity. Sometimes students took a course and they didn't understand why they were taking the course. They just knew they had to fill a gap in the number of credits that they needed. For the online courses, there was reduced interaction. Some students wanted to have more interaction, either through discussion board posts or maybe having a one-time meeting with the faculty member just to put a name to a face. Some relevant gaps, some courses felt disconnected from their majors or their career goals. So once again, they're just taking these courses to take them, but they don't actually see how it could be related to their life after graduation. And there were some workload concerns where some courses felt that the content was unevenly distributed, where there was too much in the beginning and not enough in the end, or just too much in the end. And it just felt like there was just too much pressure and stress to complete the course. So for the faculty, for the most part, they saw general education as being this curriculum that provides students a well-rounded education. It's opening up pathways to explore different courses, to gain different perspectives. They get to use the skills across courses. And that overall, it's a great thing to have in an educational journey. But their challenges that they noted was that students were having difficulty with study skills, time management, thinking critically. So they're finding that students are having difficulty annotating, dense text, right? They're not just like going to the library to get supplemental resources to increase their knowledge base, right? They're also having some executive functioning difficulties as well, which you will see with the study skills and the time management. So it's one of those things. I did hear a couple of faculty say it would be lovely to have in like an SBU 101 as students are coming in for that first semester, to give them tools and tips and strategies to be able to do well as students. So with some limitations, overall, it was the participation in the student and faculty focus groups. So it was low. We had 52 across the faculty, the upperclassmen, and the lowerclassmen, but it could have been a lot more. So, in one sense, with the upperclassmen, emails were sent to thousands of students, and we literally had 7 that responded. right? So we're trying to figure out ways to increase engagement so that students will want to come and talk about their experience with general education. Same thing with our assessing the assessment. We want to have more faculty who have gone through the process of guided conversations to talk about it, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly, because this is the only way that we really know how to improve going forward. So we're hoping that, once again, we're trying different things for this second cohort, but we're hoping that more and more faculty will get engaged in the process. So we have some recommendations, and you'll see in our report that will be distributed. It should be on our website very shortly. That to clearly identify the SBC learning outcomes within course syllabi, to really explain it to students, not to just have it there, and emphasize how each connects to the student's academic, professional, and personal growth. So it's always this is why this is so important now in the present. This is why it's important in the community. This is why it's important as you graduate. Integrate relevant real-world examples, guided practice, varied instructional approaches. Once again, this is kind of how universal design and learning comes into practice. If students are able to show multiple ways of representing that they understand what faculty have been teaching, it increases engagement. Revise course descriptions to show how each course aligns with its designated SBC category. So if you're an ESI and you're talking about what does that really mean to my course, and why should you care as a student in this particular course? Increase faculty collaboration through workshops or guided discussion. We want to just keep the conversation going regarding general education, regarding the strategies that faculty are using. I heard amazing things coming out of faculty conversations that I will distribute to other departments. If if they're in SELT, I will connect them with SELT. I will connect them with career services, connect them with different departments, because I'm like, you don't want to just keep this to yourself. I want you to share this with other people. And then strengthen communication with students about the purpose and the value. So once again, especially for those students who come in and they're dead set on whatever major they're going to be. Like, I don't care about general education. I just want to finish my major classes and graduate. They need to be, they need more focus on why it's so valuable to have other skill sets, why it's important to be exposed to other majors, other programs, other coursework, and how it can actually strengthen their major and how they are once they're done. And also the career readiness, because for me, it's always the skills you learn in a course, they should always be transferable to life after here. So for our cohort now, these are the 5 categories that will be assessed. So S&W, Tech, SAS, EXP+, and WRT. This is our timeline. So usually we start this in September, October. September is when we pull our sample. October is when we send out notifications to our assessment coordinators. So each program, bachelor's, master's, PhDs, they all have an assessment coordinator. So for the undergraduates, we work with them to discuss our sample. And really is the person that has been selected, are they going on sabbatical? Are they retiring? Do we have to catch them early because they're retiring, right? Are they leaving? Those are the only reasons why, those are the main reasons why we have our assessment coordinators review the sample of faculty who are selected from their particular area. We also notify the deans and the chairs. We want nothing to be a surprise. We want everyone to know that the assessments are coming. And then we notify the faculty members. We notify them a few times. One is to say you've been selected for our cohort. The second one is really to say you've been selected. Don't change anything. Don't change your teaching style. Teach how you normally will teach. But just know we will be assessing this course in the spring. And then it's usually a reminder, late December, saying, we'll reach back out with you come February. Right now is when I'm scheduling appointments. It's always at the flexibleness of the faculty member. So they will give me dates and times that work for them. And then we will schedule the calendar invites accordingly. And then we're hoping that in April, we can have another focus group with our upperclassmen to see how they feel once they have kind of gone through for the most part, the gamut, the majority of their SBCs that, what do they think about it? Like looking back, it's almost like a looking back. Looking back, is there anything we can improve? Anything that stood out to you? Anything we should change? So we give them that moment. So that should be around April. And then the summer is when we start putting the report together between the summer and the fall. So that is general education and the assessment in a nutshell. Are there any questions? Stop sharing so I can see some faces. I know I've said a lot.
I do actually have a question.
Oh, wait. Okay, I see Ling and Ken.
Okay, go ahead, Ling. Where are you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Diana. I think it was very informative and you've done a great job, trying to collect all these data from faculties and students, and I really appreciate, the effort. And I have a quick question about, since you've been so involved, on the work around Gen Ed at Stony Brook. So what are some of your takeaways? Is there something missing from the current Gen Ed that you found? Could you share a little bit about that? Thank you.
I wouldn't say anything is missing. I think it probably needs better branding um, to show the importance of general education and to really hone in on that value, like why this is so important. You have, anywhere from 2 to 4 semesters of taking gen eds. This is why it's important to take them. And I don't know if that's really as exposed as it should be. It really needs to have its own brand.
Thank you.
Kim?
So I was just wondering, what do you think of the whole project? What component of the process or the project has been most impactful?
For me, it's the conversations, right? I get to meet people that I would never normally meet, right? I'm normally here in the library, just in my office, right? But this gives me time to talk to people, to really bridge this whole idea of our office and how it relates to assessment, to demystify, OEE. Like, we are friendly. We want to work with you. We want to help. And I always enjoy my time. I mean, you guys, many of you can hear the conversations in the hallway. Like, we have a good time, and it's like one time to really connect with faculty in a way that I don't think has really been done before. Yes, Philip, you're muted.
Do you do any correlates in your studies of how this relates to retention and graduation rates?
Not at the moment, but that could be something to consider going forward.
And because, just to add on that, because our office is within the or within the Division of Educational Institutional Effectiveness, the conversations are flowing. So, we may not be correlating that information, but, the information is provided, to Braden Hosh and his team. And, he's definitely trying to find ways to make some of those connections. But as Diana said, at this point, it's not something that we're, currently documenting and doing.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing because you have those students who are, I don't really want to do the gen ed. Okay, I want to focus on my major and um, they're the ones that might decide, well, I'm going to go to a Stevens Tech where they don't have such a requirement. Because I can sneak out and get a degree in engineering with just gen eds that completely apply to my major and forget everything else. So it's kind of an interesting section. So good. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Diana. Good session.
And part of, so I also sit on the General Education Advisory Committee, and part of our goal is to share, these assessment findings with them as they look at, our current general education courses and trying to figure out which ones make sense. As Diana said in the very beginning, we have a ton of categories, right, for students to choose from. And I know that currently the General Education Advisory Committee is looking at those categories and trying to make sure that those are the most appropriate for students. So hopefully through that, we can come up with categories that make the most sense to them so that they don't feel as if, they're necessarily a waste. I think like Diana said, one of the biggest things that we found was that, as she said, it's the branding piece, right? And just making it make sense to students of why. I think when we have these conversations with the students, they start to understand why, but what we're finding is that not many people are having those conversations with the students. So when we ask them about it, they're like, oh, wait, like I can understand why perhaps I'm taking this, tech course, right? But I don't want to say nobody, but people they're not enough of those conversations happening. So I think if we can work with the instructors who are teaching those courses to ensure that they are starting to say like, hey, you might be an engineer major, but this course is important to you because, right? I think it could be, it will add more value to the experience for them.
I see it also fitting nicely in our middle states accreditation strategy because what Diana presented is good evidence of continuous assessment and improvement of what we're doing. So that feedback is, a critical thing. Good. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Any other
No.
questions?
Oh, we have something in the chat.
I have a question for you, Diana. What's the major skill that you've been using to really, like, throughout this process to get the faculty and students to come?
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
What's like the major skill that you have been using to get the faculty and students to really come and just throughout this whole process that you've been really doing? What's the skill that you've been using? Or like if I were to do this on my own, what skill should I have?
I will say, I think the first thing you have to do is just build rapport. Like as soon as they step through my office door, I'm building rapport because sometimes they may come in annoyed that they have to be, involved. They may feel that it's time consuming. And so within like the first 5 minutes, it's a smile. It's a, do you need anything? It's explaining everything before we even start. And then trying to, crumble the wall a little bit. And then by the time we're done, usually everyone's leaving out of here smiling. Like, they're not upset that they had to go through the process. And it's almost always, oh, that wasn't so bad. I'm going to tell others it wasn't that bad. So, all right, so we have about 2 minutes left. Any questions?
I just want to follow up on that really quick. I think Diana is downplaying herself. Diana is just one of those people that just has one of the best personalities. Unfortunately, you can't teach that, but I think in having an open, right, having an open door, being very positive, and I have found that having her do the majority of these conversations have really helped in us collecting that information because she is so happy, so positive, and so welcoming. So, I just want to add that for her.
Thank you very
It comes
much.
across in the session.
It definitely helps in these situations. So
Yes.
it's great. I mean, my whole team is like that. I will say that we're very lucky, but she leads this, so it helps.
We're kind of right at time. If anybody has any questions, obviously this is a near and dear initiative in the Office of Educational Effectiveness. So please feel free to reach out to the office if you have other specific questions related to what was presented today. Other than that, thank you. We appreciate everybody's participation. We look forward to seeing you at some of the other events throughout the week and look for the survey that you'll be getting. We really appreciate your feedback. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.